Hey, Drew back again with Princess Craft RV, and today I'm going to be walking you through the operation and appliances on the Adventurer 89 RB. We're going to start right up front here with the Happy Jack system. Now this is a wirelessly controlled system. Of course you have a corresponding remote. We're going to get to the functionality of that remote when we do get to the rear of the camper. But while we are here at the front corner, we're going to talk about the manual operation of the Happy Jack system. So if you encounter a power loss situation, one of these jacks is not working or all of them are not working, you can manually operate them. So first thing you're going to do is going to remove this cap plug. You are going to use this plastic handle to disengage that motor. You'll come down and grab the corresponding crank handle. Now they do provide two crank handles for you, so if you have a buddy, someone to help you, that's going to make things a lot easier. So you're just going to line everything up, and with that motor disengaged, that will allow you to operate this up or down again in the need of a power loss situation. Also, we have swing outs equipped on this particular camper. When you are positioning them into the travel position, you're just going to push up on this spring nut here. It's going to allow that whole jack and arm to swing in, of course, when the weight is not on it. Moving on here, we have our propane compartment. Now this unit uses two 20-pound propane cylinders. They will be full for you today. Same variant you're going to find on any gas grill. We have an open and close valve on the top of each tank. We have a tension band that holds them in place during travel. And separating the two, we have a automatic switchover propane regulator. So you are going to designate which one's going to be your primary or your secondary tank. You are going to position this little cam towards your primary tank, and you will use that tank in its entirety. And as long as you have the valve of your secondary tank open, it's going to automatically switch over to that tank once you've used this tank completely. Now, if in the meantime you go ahead and remove your primary tank to take it to get filled, all you have to do is go ahead and switch this cam over to your secondary tank, and that will kind of close this off and allow you again to go ahead and tank that cylinder to be filled. Now you do have a flow indicator there on the front of that regulator. It's going to indicate red on a closed or empty tank. And then if I go ahead and switch it back to that primary tank, we can see that kind of pinwheel over to the green to let you know that you do have gas flowing through the line. Beside that, we have your battery compartment. This unit uses two Group 24 deep cycle batteries. Now these are flooded or lead acid batteries, so what that means for you is 2 or 3 times a year we're going to go ahead and pull the vent panels up on these batteries. We're going to check the water level and maintain with distilled water as necessary. So very important that we do so. Focus that, and definitely the hottest of the summer months, that's when you're going to see more of that water be evaporated and things like that. Also in this compartment, we have your battery disconnect switch. It's a kind of a push-pull style disconnect switch. It is clearly marked in terms of direction, so out is going to be on or connected, and in will be disconnected or isolated. You're going to use that for periods of long-term storage. Anytime you're storing the unit, it is best to go ahead and isolate those batteries from any background or nominal or phantom draws throughout the system. That way it will be in essentially the same condition as you left it. Of course, you're going to have a little degradation from environment changes and things like that, but for the most part should be just as you left it, as long as you are, again, utilizing that battery disconnect switch. Up above that, we have the hood vent for your overhead, the cooktop vent and light setup. It's very important that we do open and close this, depending on use. Of course, opening it before cooking a meal, closing it when you're done. The reason why it has that open and closed flap is so you can keep road debris, weather and things out of that when you're going down the road. And then of course open it when you get there and go ahead and use it. So very important to open before cooking a meal and close when you're done. Coming back down low here, we have your 30 amp 110 volt power supply. This does only plug into the unit one way. We're going to see we have two slots here, one L shape or two diagonal and one L shaped, and we have the corresponding parts there on the camper. If we go ahead and line everything straight up, plug straight in, give it an 1/8 inch turn to the right, that locks it in. Then we do have a twist lock here to further secure it, keep that connection nice and secure, watertight, and things like that. This is your power cord, comes with the unit, 30 foot in length. My number one recommendation that I make for every unit that I deliver is going to be the addition of a 30 amp surge protector. It's very important that we do protect the ingoing power to this unit from not only environmental surges, dirty power, substandard wiring, things like that. You're going to need a standalone unit to do so. So if we have recommendations, if you have any questions on what we recommend or how to use it, feel free to give our parts department a call. They'd be more than happy to go ahead and educate you on what we recommend in terms of surge protection. Also, we are going to include a 30 to 15 amp reducer with the unit. This is this little plug style reducer. That's helpful if you want to say plug your power cord into a 15 amp wall plug in your garage or something. That's helpful. This particular style is helpful for that. This design, or this kind of streamlined design, is better suited for low draw appliances. So what happens is if you're trying to run the air conditioner, microwave on this kind of reduced size reducer, that it doesn't dissipate heat exceptionally well. So if you want to do more than kind of pre-cool your refrigerator, or maybe turn on some lights, some low draw activities, it's going to be our recommendation that you do upgrade from this puck style reducer to what they call a dog bone style reducer. Accomplishes the same thing. It is just separated by about 12 inches worth of cord, and it's going to dissipate heat a whole lot better. Moving on here, we have quite a bit going on in this particular compartment. We of course have your outside shower, on-off hot and cold valve here, on-off on the actual head to help you conserve water consumption. Very straightforward. I find most people can generally work themselves around these outside showers. They are very common. Also in that compartment, we have your potable water fill. That's how we're going to fill that onboard water tank. We're going to stick a drinking water hose directly into the orifice. We're going to fill that up till it overflows, or you are satisfied, excuse me. Once you are satisfied with the amount of water that you do have into the tank, we of course go ahead and cap it off. Now this is non-pressurized water, so there is a built-in 12-volt water pump within the unit. That's going to pressurize that freshwater system, draw that water up from the tank to the fixtures and make it usable. So we'll get eyes on that switch on the inside, but this is going to be your boondocker, your off-grid option. If you don't have access to full-time running water, you're going to be filling up the tank and using it in that capacity. Down below here, we have your city water connection. We do include a water pressure regulator with your purchase, and it's very important that if you don't particularly use this water pressure regulator, but that we always regulate that ingoing flow of water into the unit, and easiest way to do that is with a water pressure regulator. So it's going to be my recommendation that we do go ahead and hook this onto the spigot side of the spigot side of the hose, and then we hook our hose directly onto that water pressure regulator. And lastly, we make our connection here on the camper by rotating that trailer bound connection. So just give that a counterclockwise twist and you'll be good. Actually, it would more than likely feed up through the bottom here. So that's kind of what you're going to be looking for. You're going to feed it up through the bottom here and then make your connection here. Very important, again, that you do use this water pressure regulator. These units are particularly rated for water pressure in between 50 and 75 psi. This is going to keep you well within that limit, and it is very important for the longevity of your plumbing connections. Right beside that, we have a black tank flush. Now this corresponds with a jet inside the black water tank, specifically designed to help blast off compounded toilet waste, body waste, things like that. It's very important that you operate this correctly to avoid any damage to your camper. First things first, you're going to go through your normal dumping procedure. We're going to talk about that more in depth here in just a few minutes. But once you've done so, you're going to use this connection to, of course, clean that tank out internally. You're going to use any old garden hose to make that connection, and you're going to want to make sure that that black water valve is in the open position. Reason being is there's no check valve. There's nothing to really specifically keep that water from overflowing that tank. So be sure that that black water valve is in the open position before you even think about going ahead and using this black tank flush. So down here on the underside of the wing, we have your sewer outlet connection or your bayonet fitting. This is where you're actually going to connect your sewage hose to the unit. So anytime you're traveling, running down the road, this cap does need to be in place. It is kind of a twist lock connection. So when it goes to hook up your sewage hose, keep in mind that the sewage hose makes its connection the very same way this cap does. So you have 4 prongs along the outside of that inner tube. You go ahead and match the prongs up with the keyholes, give it a nice firm twist here. That's going to go ahead and lock that on and get you ready for service. Same here with the sewage hose. So just go ahead and make that connection, give it a quarter turn there. That's going to go ahead and lock everything on. Right beside that, we have your sewage hose storage. So again, this has a cap on it, and got a little bit of water on my hand, so I may not be able to unscrew that. But the cap does unscrew from this side here, and your sewage hose just does store there on the underside, does run the full width of the camper on the underside here. So it should accommodate any size hose that you can come up with. With keeping those dump valves or that bayonet fitting in mind, we're going to go ahead and take a look here at your actual Blade X valves. This is where we're actually going to dump our waste. We have 2 handles in here. One is silver and one is black. Silver one's going to be for gray water or liquid waste. The black one is going to be for body or toilet waste. So very important with these blade valves that we do keep those in the closed position. We're going to use the monitor panel on the inside, and we are only going to dump as necessary. So specifically with that black water tank, you have toilet paper, body waste, things like that in that holding tank, and we want to keep that in as wet or flowing condition as we can. So again, we're going to use the monitor panel on the inside. We are only going to dump as necessary. Now, when it does come to dump, keep in mind that you never want both of these valves to be in the open position at the same time. We want to avoid any cross-contamination or backfeeding issues. So go ahead and dump, one and then the other. Generally, the popular way of doing it is going to be dumping your black water tank first. Once that is completely dumped, you're going to close that valve, and then you're going to open that gray water valve, and it's going to rinse any shared plumbing between the two, as well as your sewage hose on the way out. Now, if you were to go one step further and use the black tank flush, which is of course my recommendation, what you would do is then open that black water valve, make your connection there like we just talked about, and go ahead and rinse that. Again, paying special attention that we do have that black water valve in the open position. To open either one of those valves, it is just going to be a 6-inch pull towards you. So there's no twisting action. It is just literally a 6-inch pull towards you. Excuse me. Also in this compartment, we have your freshwater drain. That's how we are going to drain that freshwater holding tank. We took a look on how to fill that on the compartment door, and it is just a valve here. So with any valve, if you are against the flow, you're off. With the flow, you're on. Last but not least, here in this kind of basement compartment, we do have a storage tray. It has a little yellow locking handle on the side. You can go ahead and pull that out, store any long storage that you have. Have your rooftop ladder access. We have it stored in the upward position right now. You're going to go ahead and use that to gain access to the roof, obviously. It's very important that we do a 360-degree inspection of the unit. Not only the rooftop seals, but anywhere on the unit where 2 pieces come together every 90 days, we want to go ahead and inspect those components. So on the body, generally, around the compartment doors, and again, anywhere where 2 pieces come together, they're going to use a 100% silicone product. Just match the color, remove the bad spots, and touch up as necessary. On the roof, they're going to use a self-leveling lap sealant. Dicor is generally the popular option with that. And you are going to, of course, if you see any degradation, cracking, peeling, separation, anything like that, it's not really a precision move up top. So you're going to kind of lay a heavy bead, and it will, of course, kind of spread out as it dries. So just keep in mind that we are going to be inspecting those seals every 90 days. And the idea being is that if there is any degradation, we want to catch it as quickly as we can. Now we have your generator here, generator compartment door open, as well as your access panel removed. The reason being for that is I want to point out, if we look here at this power switch and we look directly below that, there is a breaker, and that's going to be your outputting power breaker. It's a little yellow light switch breaker. May not translate exceptionally well onto camera, but if you know it's there, that's all that's important. So that's a light breaker to the touch. It just does not take just does not take a lot of pressure to actually flip that into the off position. What that is that's your outputting power breaker. So what often happens with these truck campers especially is our customers will go over a bump or something along those lines, and just that is enough to go ahead and trip that breaker. They get to where they're going, they go ahead and power up that generator. It'll start up and run just fine without issue, although it will not output power. So it's going to be running, it's going to be making a lot of noise, but it's not going to be doing anything until you go ahead and return that switch into the upward position. So just something to point out, keep in mind that you will have to go ahead and remove this access panel to go ahead and gain access to that switch. It's super easy to do so. It is just get a flat bladed screwdriver and go ahead and rotate that into the secondary position. That's going to allow you to go ahead and pull that door off. Other than that, here on the rear, nothing too crazy to speak of. We of course have outside speakers, awning, porch lights, all of those things we're going to get to the operation of those on the inside of the unit, but nothing much to speak of here on the exterior. Moving around here, first things first is going to be your water heater here. This is a propane only water heater. Will run on propane gas with 12 volt direct spark ignition. Now manufacturer has some very important suggestions on how you drain this properly. It can get kind of sketchy if you're trying to depressurize this and drain it and not following the manufacturer's recommendations. So what you're going to do, number one, is give it ample time to cool down, generally a lot longer than you may think. It's very well insulated, will take a long time for that temperature to drop. Once you're fairly confident of the temperature of the appliance, we're going to go ahead and depressurize it before we drain it. So to depressurize it, we're going to cut the overall inflow of water to the unit as a whole. So if we are running off the city water connection, we're going to physically turn that valve off. If we are using the 12 volt water pump, we're just going to turn that off. Now once we've done so, we're going to use the hot side of any fixture within the unit, whether that's the outside shower, whether that's the bathroom fixture or the kitchen fixture. Any one will work. We're just going to turn the hot side on. We're going to allow that excess pressure to bleed off from that fixture. So once we've done so, we're going to come back outside here. We're going to use an 1/16" socket and extension, and we're going to go ahead and remove that drain plug. Once we've successfully depressurized the unit, once we've made sure the unit has cooled down, we've depressurized it, that water is just going to naturally flow from that area, of course, once we remove that drain plug. I would expect to see 5.5 gallons of water be expressed from this location. Now, this drain plug pulls double duty. It's not only a drain plug, but it is also an anode rod. What an anode rod is it's a 12-inch by 3/4 inch, generally a piece of magnesium. It acts like a magnet for hard water deposits, calcification, things like that. They deposit onto that anode rod and eat away at that as opposed to depositing on the inside of the water heater. So it is a consumable part. I would expect to get a season or two or a year or two, depending on use, in between anode rod changes. And again, you're going to be well aware of the condition because you are going to be looking at it every time you drain the water heater. And just a reminder, you do want to go ahead and drain the water heater separate of the system anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days. When it comes to replacing the water heater, they are generally standard size. Save your old one, take it into your RV dealer. They'll be able to outfit you with a new one. May take a couple wraps of some Teflon tape to make it watertight here, but it is very easy to change when it does need to be. So on the flip side of that conversation, before we return the unit back into service, we have of course replaced our anode rod here. We need to prime or pump 6 gallons of water into the unit before we start heating that water. So again, we're going to, it's going to be a very similar process to depressurizing and draining it. But what we're going to do is we are going to introduce an inflow of water to the unit. So we're just going to repressurize that system. Once we've repressurized that system, we're again going to go to the hot side of any fixture within the unit. We're going to turn that hot side of the fixture on. We're going to see a little different look a few different things at this point. You're going to see a lot more water come from that fixture, but that flow is going to be very interrupted, very airy. It's going to kind of be burping, things like that. What that's doing is it is displacing the air that has filled the tank and replacing it with water. Generally, it'll take about 5 minutes or less for that water tank to fill up completely. Once that flow normalizes at the fixture, that is your indicator that you have 6 gallons of water within the unit, and you can go ahead and start heating that water as necessary. Other than that, not only with the water heater here, but with all of the propane appliances, which happen to be all located here in this same area, it's very important that we protect those from the intrusion of mud daubers and flying insects. These louvers and this grating doesn't do an excellent job of keeping those flying insects from nesting within the appliance. Flying insects are attracted to the smell of propane, so it's not a matter of if they will nest in these appliances, it's when. So save yourself the headache and go ahead and buy the bug screens to go ahead and outfit this unit completely to keep them out. When you do go to, of course, open and close the door, you have a little tab here. If you line that up properly, it's going to come right through that slot, and just give it a pull and a twist, and that's going to go ahead and lock that door closed. Hopping up here to your refrigerator door or your refrigerator vent, this is going to be your access here. Now, this is not what we generally would consider a customer serviceable unit. There's not a terrible amount of maintenance that this appliance carries. You're probably not going to find yourself in this compartment very often. My recommendation is go ahead and remove the vent a few times a year. Make sure nothing's gotten in. Make sure there's no nests, frayed wires, anything like that. Just give it a visual inspection. If it looks good, chances are it's going to be good. This is, again, another intrusion point for mud daubers and flying insects. We do want to go ahead and screen off these vents to keep them out. Now, when you go to either install or remove the vent panel door here, you have some cutouts there on the bottom. You just line the slots up. Again, line everything up and kind of work it in there till it's flush. Once you've done so, you go ahead and twist these little locking mechanisms, and they go ahead and keep that nice and tight. Now, I always go back and give it an extra pull, make sure it is in fact locked on and it's not going to go anywhere when I start going down the road. Below that, we have your furnace vent. Again, this kind of falls into that not really customer serviceable category. Does blow very hot air when it is on. It's very important that we do not restrict the flow here on the exhaust. We give that a free path to exhaust. And again, go for the bug screen. Keep the mud daubers, flying insects out of the appliance. If you do those things, you're going to be in good shape. Just about covers it here on the exterior of the Adventurer. We're going to go ahead and hop on the inside and take a look at the functionality of those appliances. So here on the interior of the unit, we have your Happy Jack remote here. Of course, I referenced this right at the beginning. This is going to be how you control the jack system. So you have the 2 center buttons you're going to push to turn the remote on, and then the 2 top buttons are going to remote that with the board, and now we are ready to go. So if you're going ahead and looking at the remote, the orientation is going to be from the rear of the unit facing forward. You have your driver side front, passenger side front, driver rear, passenger rear, or all jacks at the same time. This does run on batteries. If those batteries were to fail you, you are going to find in your paperwork messenger bag a coiled handset that's going to plug right directly there into the remote and into the board as well. That will allow you to go ahead and operate this, again, kind of tethered to the board in the event that you need to do so. My recommendation is going to be just carry a spare set of batteries with you for that remote. We have your fire extinguisher. This is a very important piece of your safety equipment, something we want to test every single time we take the unit out. Go ahead and push that green tab down. If it springs back, that means you have life or pressure within the unit. If it stays depressed, it's time to go ahead and yank that out and replace it. Dropping down low here, we have your generator switch. Now this is how you're going to go ahead and turn that generator on and off, and you also have your hour counter there. When you do turn this on or go to use it, you're going to want to hold this first in the stop position until we see that orange light come on. What we've done is just primed the generator. We're then going to release for a second, come up here to the start. You can of course hear that generator start up and run. I'm not going to let it do so for too long just because of how loud it is. Now, if the unit has not been in use for quite a while, the propane has bled out of those lines, you may find yourself here in that kind of cranking that in that start position for quite a long time. Do not want to over crank it. So I would not let it kind of turn over for more than 10 seconds, kind of count in your head, make sure you're not going to do so. You have a porthole fan here, easy, on off switch there, but to open this, you just push it out. One thing you want to make sure you do close that before going down the road. It is just, a push pull motion there. Standard kind of RV style shower with a sink diverter here. So what you do is in this case, you would just lift this up. That's going to switch that flow from the sink to the shower head. You have your mixing valves here. You have a on-off switch here on the head of the shower. That's going to help you again conserve water consumption. Specifically when you're kind of boondocking or your hot water when you're not. This is going to be a pedal style flush, so it will be a light press on that pedal to fill the bowl, and then a full press to go ahead and flush. Not a bad idea to always keep water within the bowl. That's going to help keep those bad smells down when you flush. And it's a good time to kind of talk about the treatments and the products that we use with this system. Number one is going to be an RV grade toilet paper, single ply, very important that we do so. We're also going to want to use a deodorizing product that's of course going to help control the smells. And it's up to you on whether you use a tissue dissolver or something along those lines. Of course, that's my recommendation, but you can do as you like. No matter what, all of those chemical toilet, either way, all of those products are going to be introduced here right at the toilet. So number one, follow the instructions on the packaging of that specific product. They're all different, but generally you're going to, again, insert the product here, open up the valve, drop it in, pour it in, whatever, and then you will kind of chase it with a certain amount of water. Again, they're all kind of different, so make sure you're paying attention to the specific product you're using. Other than that, in here, nothing too crazy. We have a little toilet paper dispenser, so it's not getting wet when you're showering. Shower curtains pulled back here. Again, really kind of basic shower setup. It is quite large for a wet, dry bath, but in terms of functionality, very, very much the same as to what you're used to. Take a look at how this door actually closes and latches. It is just a very basic flip latch there to keep that closed when you're going down the road. Here in the dinette, we're going to take a look at how we make this into a bed. First off, you're going to want to go ahead and lift the cushions out of the way slightly. It just makes the whole process a little bit easier. So we go ahead and lift those out of the way as best we can. And then if we look down here on the underside of the table, you have a little locking tab. We of course have it in the locked position here. So what we're going to do is swing that into the secondary position, put a little pressure there on the top, that drops down. We'll then go ahead and rotate that, if I can find it, rotate that, lock into the secondary position. From there, it's just as simple as rearranging your cushions. All right, so when you go ahead and put it back, very much as to what you just did, go ahead and replace the cushions. Little Velcro straps are going to help keep those in place. You can momentarily kind of lift these out of the way if you want. I actually put this one on backwards, so I'm going to move that. Unlock the table. And once we've come to the fully extended position, we're going to go ahead and slide that locking tab back. And then, of course, rearrange the cushions back to their normal position. Also here kind of in the cabinetry, one thing to point out is we do have your rear awning light switch and controls here. Now this is a momentary switch. You can choose how far you extend that awning, kind of follow the sun in the sky if you'd like to do so. Now these awnings, they are very lightweight by design. They are not meant to take wind really at all. So if it's going to be a gusty day, it's probably best to go ahead and leave that awning in. Excuse me, not something that you would ever want to, leave your spot, leave your unit unattended with that awning in the extended position. They're very expensive to replace, and it's not something you would want to get damaged. And then we have a lighted switch there for the awning lights. There's an LED strip in the tube of that awning to help light that space, of course, after dark. Cabinetry is pretty straightforward. Nothing too crazy with that. We do have your Jensen stereo unit here. Excuse me. CD, DVD, AM, FM radio, Bluetooth, all of those features are going to be utilized through this unit itself. You do have zones here specifically. So you have a interior zone of speakers. We see those on either side of that cabinetry, and you do have an exterior zone of speakers as well. Keep in mind that those are controlled separately. The volume are controlled separately here through this zone button. We'll turn this on and probably have some music on, so we'll go ahead and turn that down. And then we can go ahead and take a look at the modes here. Again, AM, FM, Bluetooth. Front auxiliary is going to be utilized here with either the 3.5 millimeter jack or the USB. And that's it. So rear auxiliary is kind of off the board. HDMI ARC could potentially communicate with the television, although this particular floor plan, this particular unit does not have a television equipped with it. In theory, this head unit can be linked with a television to kind of give you a surround sound, kind of use this as a receiver and have that audio broadcast through these speakers. So that is possible. All the shades within the unit are going to be basically the same. They're these tension pull down shades. Very easy. Just generally you're going to grab from the middle and pull up or down. Windows have the lock tab here, very much kind of like a residential window. So with that unlocked, you can of course go ahead and slide it that way, and everything but the emergency exit is going to be that same slider style window. Very important to make sure you lock that when you're done using it. Above my head here we have your fantastic fan vent. It's a high-powered exhaust fan. A lot of people will operate this. They'll go ahead and open the windows up. They will turn this on, and that fan is powerful enough to get a nice cross breeze throughout the unit. Biggest thing with this is you're going to want to make sure you close that before going down the road. May or may not be there when you get to where you're going if you don't. So make sure we close that nice and snug. You do have a 4 amp fuse holder here. If this gives you any problems, it's more likely going to be that fuse. And that is a standard bus style fuse. Here into the kitchen area, we of course have your cooktop and oven equipped with a turnstile piezo igniter there. So we're just going to turn that burner on, give that rotate that clockwise, and we can go ahead and light all of those burners independently. We do have control over the intensity of each burner on that knob as well. Lighting the oven's going to be slightly different. You'll light this just like you would any other pilot light. So you're going to rotate this to the pilot setting. To get that gas to flow, you have to go ahead and push this button in. So what you're going to do with this button pushed in, and you're going to go ahead and get a long stem barbecue lighter, and you are going to, we are going to put our flame here on this thermal coupler as well as this propane line. So a little hard to see on camera, but if you actually open up the door and take a look down below, you can't miss it. So again, you're going to be holding that pilot light with the flame of your lighter on in between those two prongs. Once we see that pilot light there, we're going to keep holding this in for about 3 seconds longer while that thermal coupler heats up, and then we can actually rotate this to choose our preheat temperature and things like that. Hopping up here, of course this unit comes pre-wired for solar. If you choose to add that later on, kind of the to and from wiring is already ran. So this would be the location of your charge controller if you choose to do that. And then down below we have quite a bit going on. So we have your tank monitors here. This is going to give you the level of how full your tanks are, your fresh water, your black water, and your gray water holding tank. as well as your battery. Now, battery reads full anytime the unit's plugged in. To get an accurate readout of where your battery sits, you need to go ahead and unplug from shore power. Shore power, again, will, when the unit is plugged into shore power, it will read full all the time. Fresh water is sitting at full. Black water is a third full just from our testing, and gray water is a third full as well. And again, those are going to, just push the corresponding button and it'll indicate to you the level of full here with the lights. We have our porch light here down below. That was that bright white LED we seen above the entry door. We have our entry light here, which is just a single light that you could go ahead and hit. And then we have our water pump switch. Again, that's how we're running the unit today. We have that water tank filled up. We're pressurizing the system with the water pump. And then we have our water heater switch here. Again, this is a propane only water heater with 12 volt direct spark ignition. So if you go ahead and turn that on, it's going to try and light 3 times. That's considered 1 cycle. If it does not light by the end of that cycle for whatever reason, whether you're out of gas, whether the propane hasn't made its way through the line, it's going to illuminate this DSI fault light and stop trying to light. In the event that that happens, just go outside, make sure your valves are on, make sure you actually have gas in the tank, turn the switch off, turn it back on. It's going to start a new cycle in which it will try and light 3 times. Up top here, standard run-of-the-mill microwave, nothing too crazy that's going to separate this from what you have at home. Kind of time and temperature. You have some presets, some menu options there. Of course, your numbers here, very straightforward of what you're probably already used to. We have your vent here, vent fan, I should say, and light there for the cooktop. Again, this is very indicative of what you generally will see in the residential sector. Kind of switching places here, nothing too crazy. Here in the kitchen, we of course have the countertop extenders, double sink here. Again, nothing too crazy. One thing to point out is you do have your GFI outlet. That is the main GFI outlet. All the receptacle. So what we have here is going to be your main GFI outlet. All of the receptacles in this unit are on the same circuit. If one of them gets overloaded and fails, they kind of all follow suit. That's going to be the reset point. Again, I find most people know how to operate those outlets. Most have them in their bathrooms, things like that. Good time to point out, I guess, the rest of these light switches. They do all have buttons on them. So you're going to turn those on independently, a nice silver button in the center to allow you to do so. Also up top here, we have your air conditioner. This is, there's no secondary thermostat or anything. All your controls are going to be done right here on the unit itself. You have a low fan speed, a high fan speed, a low cool, and a high cool. So of course you have standalone fan and then actually conditioned air with that low cool and high cool. You have a thermostat here as well. You can dial that, kind of your setting within the setting. If you, red and blue, hot or cold. On this unit, we have filters on each side. So you have a couple tabs here. You would kind of pry that out of the way. Be kind of gentle with these. These tend to break fairly easy. But with that removed, you can see this reusable filter on the underside. Just pull it out, go ahead and rinse it out, give it time to dry, and it should give you many years of service if you keep it clean. Turning around here, we have your refrigerator. This is a 2-way refrigerator. It runs on a 110 volt as well as propane gas. To get to the controls of the unit, we have to open up the door. Of course, first up we have your on-off switch, and we have your auto to gas switch as well. What that means is kind of the standard setting on this is going to be auto. What that means is it's going to default to AC voltage if it's available. If you find no AC voltage, it's going to automatically switch over to propane gas. We can see what we have designated here. We're in auto, so if I were to run out there and unplug the unit, it's going to start lighting on gas and running on gas. The only other kind of mode is going to be on standalone gas, and that's going to be kind of your going down the road option if you choose to operate it that way. And we can see that kind of went over to the gas side. And then we have a temperature set here, 1 through 5. Of course, 5 being the coldest, 1 being the warmest. On the handles, super easy, but you just kind of reach in and there's a little push button that's going to allow you to open that up. Same here on the refrigerator. On the other side of that wall, we have your furnace. That's going to be your propane burning furnace. That you have your on-off switch here. Now this switch is famously tough, so just go ahead and kind of muscle that into the on position, and then you have a slider knob here. So you can choose your comfort level. You do have a little thermometer here that's going to tell you the real-time temperature, and then you're going to kind of guess as to where you want that heat here on this secondary slider. So that furnace is going to, once you kind of slide this secondary lever, it's going to kick that blower motor on immediately. 16 seconds after that, it ignites. By that 30-second mark, it's producing noticeable heat. Now, just a word of warning: in a unit of this size, when you first start that furnace, excuse me, it can set off the smoke alarm. That's a very common happening. Why it's happening is when you first start up the unit, it's not running at its peak efficiency. As it continues to run within the first 10 to 15 minutes of operation, that efficiency level goes way up, and it will, of course, cease to set off that smoke alarm. Down below here, we have your automotive blade style fuses. Those are replaceable. Not a bad idea to keep a spare set with you. And then on the left side, we have your resettable household breakers. I find most people are familiar with those. Very much of what you're going to find in your fuse panel box at home. And then right next to that, we have your carbon monoxide LP leak detector. Now that's wired into the 12-volt section of the camper. Is a very important piece of safety equipment. We're just going to go ahead and test that every single time we take the unit out. It does have a test button. Again, it's going to indicate to you if it senses any of those gases. So just be aware of that. So up here into the cab over, we of course have your emergency exit. This is really going to be the only window that slightly differs in operation to the rest of the windows, although you still do have that locking tab and you can go ahead and operate that just like you would any of the other windows. Now what makes it different is you have the ability to exit from this location. So what you would do in the event of an emergency, you'd go ahead and yank this screen out of the way. You have two handles here, so you would just go ahead and lift those up. That's going to allow that window in frame to kind of swing out like a doggy door, and again allow you to exit from this location if you're particularly motivated enough. Still the same kind of pull down shade we have here. Very, very kind of straightforward. Coming up here, we have your hike vent or escape hatch, depending on the branding, but they all generally will work similar. You have a fold down crank handle here. Once you fold that down, you can go ahead and crank that up and open that. And then you also have a privacy shade here, and you also have a screen there if you wanted to go ahead and have airflow, but keep those bugs and insects out of the way there. Although we're not going to get it on camera, keep in mind you have 110 volt outlets on the side of the bed here. You have USB chargers as well. Storage on this side. Again, this is very straightforward stuff here, guys. Same light switch we've seen throughout the unit. All right, that just about covers the walkthrough here on the Adventurer 89RB. If there's something we missed, something you may have questions on, something we can explain further, please don't hesitate to either give us a call or comment below. Thank you so much for your time.